I'm here to tell you about a book of personal stories that reveal the untold experiences and relationships of myself with the people I lived amongst over 10 years in rural northwestern Pakistan in the tribal areas bordering Afghanistan. I was participating in local life as a method of researching culture, particularly women's culture. Although I've written a scholarly book and articles, friends and colleagues have often asked what it was like to be a foreign woman in an isolated tribal Muslim culture. And because this culture was more recently home and host to Osama bin Laden, the curiosity became even greater. These everyday occurrences and personal stuff of life with my 1-year-old daughter will answer some of these questions. They contain the secrets and blunders that tend to be withheld from academic books. Pashto is a language, but beyond that, it's a way of life. If you speak it, you're expected to do it. Over the years, as my language skills improved, I became relegated to the women's world, particularly in the tribal area where foreigners are not welcome. When I was a guest, I was expected not to attract any attention to the house hosting me. As it was the only way to collect information about this culture, I learned to accept, to do, and to understand Pashto. I learned to avoid eye contact and even turn my back to men or leave discreetly when they entered the room. I learned to ignore the filth and animals that shared space with the women. Learned not to mind being touched by a dozen women at once. To eat men's leftovers. Learned to know men only by hearsay, their names, or by the empty dishes returned from the guest house that told me they were good eaters. I cut my hands learning to cut grass correctly, to make brooms and baskets. I learned to ignore the blackened, flea-ridden bedding I was offered in people's houses. And I accustomed my stomach to disorders in order to enable drinking whatever water was offered, wherever it came from, in acceptance of hospitality. I will share some excerpts from my book, Secrets from the Field, and talk about a new book that links your 7-Eleven or other convenience store employee from behind the counter to his home village in Pakistan, where he yearns to return. I had a long-standing friendship with an outlaw who established residency in the tribal Khyber area. The tribal area pays for its independence from Pakistani government by foregoing things like roads, schools, water, or electricity. Living is very basic. Wives are bought and sold. I became friends with the family hosting my outlaw friend and was involved in bride negotiations when I came home one day to be met with news that someone had heard about a strong, healthy young girl who lived up in the Khyber. My host decided on the spot to purchase her for his oldest son, but my friend and I argued that the boy's mother should maybe have a look at this prospective bride before engaging in any deals. Was she pretty? Could she speak and cook well? Did she have physical or mental defects? Was she a good fit for the women she would live and work with the rest of her life? I convinced the mother, and she in turn convinced her husband, that he wouldn't buy a cow before seeing it first, so why a woman? It was decided that I would go, escorted by the boy's father, to visit the girl and her family. He discussed the business end of things with her father, while I went inside to visit with the girl and check her out. I was able to report on her, and the families were joined soon afterward. Villages do not have hotels or rentals, and outsiders usually come as house guests. But with a child and nanny, I wanted independent housing. I was allowed to take up residence in the school principal's house adjoining the girls' school, since she was married and lived in the village. The first item to arrange was water, and the school watchman controlled the public faucet, so I paid him to fill my water pots once a day. I made other arrangements directly with his wife, whom I became friends with immediately through my daughter, who enjoyed playing in her courtyard with her 2-year-old and their goats. The watchman also brought me wood and dung patties for fuel whenever he bought it for himself. All our cooking was done over a fire in the corner of the courtyard, and since the region was desert, everyone burned dung. I provided the flour so that his wife would bring me 2 breads twice a day when she cooked her own. As for errands from the bazaar, As it was totally inappropriate for me to be seen there, these were run by her older children. Another concern was dairy products. There were only a handful of cows in the village, and few people had chickens. No one, therefore, sold fresh milk or eggs. I was still nursing my daughter, Lawangina, but wanted milk for her cereals. I arranged with one of the shopkeepers to send me a pint of packaged milk each day with his daughter when she came to school. And another friend with a cow sent me a cup of fresh yogurt each day with her daughter in exchange for English lessons. When in the city of Peshawar, I attended seminars and classes at the Pashto Academy and got to know other women students. One of these, Aziza, was an Afghan refugee living in the city and working on her master's degree at the university. We went out shopping one day, and she suggested we go to the movies. Once inside the cinema, we were led directly to the curtained-off seats in the back by a young boy attempting to flirt with us. "What do you do when a man touches you in public and you're stuck next to him?" I asked her, remembering a situation recently on a bus where I had found myself the only woman and a man had sat next to me and had harassed me. "Right away, you turn on him viciously like an animal and yell at him to keep his hands to himself. He'll be so taken by surprise and shamed publicly that he won't approach you again, and everyone will be watching him. Of course, if you sit there quietly, he thinks you enjoy it and keeps going. The trick is to snap very harshly and loudly. People understand." I remembered this and used the lesson often, but also kept a knife under my veil to poke at wandering hands on public transportation. A group of turbaned Afghan youths was seated in the last row of the cinema, just in front of the women's section. And as the lights came on at the intermission, one of them, without turning back, reached behind his head to grab the curtain and pull it shut with a gesture I took as disgust, muttering, "Get those women out of here!" Despite its seeming brutality, the gesture tickled my friend Pink, and she smilingly praised the honor and respect for women manifested by the act. "Everyone would have turned to look at us," she explained. "He did it for our protection." She commended his dignity, adding her belief that only Afghans would act so nobly. As a last excerpt from my secrets, I take you to a local Pashtun shrine and to the pilgrimage performed there. We've all heard of the pilgrimage to Mecca, but there are many small local shrines visited by devout Muslims on Thursdays. This one, Pir Baba, has thousands of pilgrims spending the night in prayer and motion walking around the saint's tomb. I had gone to experience a night in the shrine. All around me, from under their blankets, each man seemed to brush his hands along women's body parts, sometimes grabbing what he could. If I stood still for even a moment, they would come and lean against me. I thought at first it was just me, although I was fully veiled, but noticed with relief that every woman around me was being touched and felt in like manner. Here was a context in which hundreds of men and women with no knowledge of each other were thrown together tightly, and suddenly all notions of reserve, shame, modesty, and respect, also dominant within the home, vanished. I wondered if this was the hidden appeal that the shrine visit holds for so many Pashtuns. It was extremely uncomfortable, and there was no way to dodge or direct the forceful flow of men as I circled the tomb. I've now shared some excerpts from Secrets from the Field, which you can order from Amazon.com. My upcoming book tells the story of a local convenience store employee and how he runs his home in northwestern Pakistan in minute detail while functioning behind his counter for 2 decades. My name is Benedict Grima, and I hope you enjoy these books.